There's a pattern that shows up again and again, and most people don't expect it at first. A lot of people take magnesium glycinate and never feel a real shift. Not because the supplement is poor quality, but because the body isn't responding the way they expect anymore. You can feel that difference if you pay attention. Muscles feel tighter than they used to. There's a kind of heaviness that lingers. Even sleep doesn't land the same way, less restful, less complete. And that's the frustrating part. You're doing exactly what you've been told. You take the supplement, you try to support your body, and still nothing really changes. Here's what almost no one points out clearly. Magnesium glycinate can be present in your system, but that doesn't mean it actually triggers the deeper response your body needs to feel a difference. It's like adding something important, but without turning on the mechanism that makes it noticeable. That's why people keep switching. One bottle turns into another, higher doses, different brands, different forms, and the experience still doesn't really change. And the experience stays the same. Not because they're doing it wrong, but because they're only working on one layer of the problem. This is where things start to shift. There are certain grains your body recognizes in a very different way, not as something forced in, but as something that moves with your natural processes. When they're used correctly, the response can feel stronger, steadier, and more consistent. In this video, you're going to see 5 specific grains ranked from the least powerful to the most powerful. And number 2, most people completely overlook it, but it can change how your body responds in a way you can actually feel. So if your body hasn't been responding the way you expected, this matters. Subscribe now because the difference you're missing might not be in the supplement at all, but in how your body is being activated. The one most people walk past without even noticing is millet. It sits there on the shelf, almost invisible, and for adults over 60, that quiet habit of ignoring it can turn into one of the bigger nutritional misses over time. It's not new either. Millet has been part of everyday diets across Africa and Asia for thousands of years, long before supplements ever entered the picture. And now the numbers are starting to explain why it stayed around that long. A single cooked cup gives you about 76 milligrams of magnesium, which comes out to roughly 19% of what older adults need in a day. But what stands out isn't just the amount, it's how the body handles it. A 2021 study in Frontiers in Nutrition looked at how magnesium from millet is absorbed compared to supplements, and when it's eaten as part of a full meal, absorption was about 33% higher. That difference comes from how millet moves through your system. The starch breaks down slowly. The soluble fiber keeps things moving at a controlled pace, and that extra time in the gut gives your intestinal lining more chances to pull magnesium into the bloodstream. That kind of timing is harder to achieve with a capsule alone. It also comes without gluten, which matters more as digestion becomes more sensitive over time. And alongside magnesium, you're getting phosphorus, manganese, and B vitamins, especially niacin, which ties into cholesterol balance. There's another layer here. A 2020 meta-analysis published in Nutrients reviewed 11 clinical trials and found that regular millet intake lowered fasting blood glucose by an average of 12% in people with pre-diabetes. So instead of a quick spike and drop, the body is getting a steadier supply, something your nerves and muscles can actually use across the day. How you prepare it changes what you get out of it. Let it soak overnight in water with a small splash of lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. That step reduces phytic acid, the compound that binds minerals and limits how much you absorb. After that, rinse it well, then cook it using a 2-to-1 ratio of water to millet. Bring it up to a boil, turn it down to a low simmer, cover it, and give it about 20 minutes until the water is gone. From there, it fits in easily. Warm it up as a breakfast porridge with cinnamon and a little honey, or cool it down and use it as a base for a grain bowl later in the day. If you want more flavor, a quick 3-minute toast in a dry pan before cooking brings out a deeper, nutty taste that makes it easier to keep coming back to, and that consistency is where the real shift happens. Instead of the sharp rise and fall you get from a pill, millet builds a steadier level over time, and that's where the body starts responding differently. Teff goes even further than that. It's an ancient grain from Ethiopia, and each grain is so small, it takes around 150 of them just to match the weight of a single wheat kernel. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in density. A cooked cup gives you about 126 milligrams of magnesium, which covers roughly 30% of what adults over 60 need in a day. And when researchers started comparing it side by side with common grains, the gap became clear. A 2019 analysis in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis showed teff carries significantly more magnesium, calcium, and iron than wheat, rice, and even quinoa. Per serving, it delivers about 2.4 times more calcium than brown rice and around 1.8 times more magnesium than whole wheat flour. That combination matters more than it first appears. In people over 60, low magnesium and low iron often show up together, and trying to fix them separately usually means juggling multiple supplements. With teff, both are coming in through the same source at the same time. There's data behind that shift. In a 2022 randomized controlled trial published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, 86 adults with low mineral levels were tracked over 8 weeks. The group that added teff daily saw their serum magnesium rise by 18%. The group relying only on supplements increased by 11% over the same period. Part of that difference comes from what's happening in the gut. Teff contains resistant starch, which feeds beneficial bacteria, and as those populations improve, mineral absorption across the digestive tract improves with it. So it's not just what you're taking in, it's what your body can actually pull from it. It's also naturally gluten-free, with a mild, slightly sweet taste that fits into a lot of meals without effort. How it's prepared still plays a role. Cooking it as a porridge tends to work best. 1 cup of teff with 3 cups of water, brought to a boil while stirring so it doesn't stick. Then lowered to a gentle simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Keep stirring occasionally until it thickens into a smooth, creamy texture. There's another route that changes things even more. Turning it into traditional injera, a fermented flatbread, breaks down more phytic acid than soaking alone. A 2020 study in the Journal of Cereal Science found fermentation can increase mineral bioavailability by up to 60%. Used in the morning, it sets a different tone for the day. A bowl of teff porridge with sliced banana and a handful of walnuts brings in magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids, and potassium all at once, right when your system is starting up. And if the body hasn't been responding the way you expected, this is exactly where those overlooked choices start to matter. Subscribe now, because the foods people tend to ignore are often the ones that shift how your body actually responds. Amaranth pushes things even further. It's not technically a true grain, more of a pseudo cereal, but once it's in your kitchen, it behaves exactly like one and ends up outperforming most of them anyway. A single cooked cup gives you around 160 milligrams of magnesium, which is close to 38% of what older adults need in a day. That's already more than double what you'd get from a typical serving of brown rice, but the real difference shows up when you look at the full mineral profile. A 2021 review in Food Chemistry compared 22 different grains and pseudo-cereals, and amaranth came out on top for overall mineral density, ahead of quinoa, oats, millet, and barley. There's a long history behind that. The Aztecs treated it as a core food for energy and recovery, and newer research is starting to line up with that pattern. In a 2023 study published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences, researchers identified specific peptides like leucine, along with other bioactive compounds that act directly on muscle tissue. In that study, adults between 55 and 75 who ate amaranth daily for 12 weeks reported about a 41% drop in muscle soreness, along with measurable gains in grip strength compared to the control group. Those are the same kinds of symptoms people often try to manage with magnesium supplements. Muscle tightness, nighttime cramping, restless legs. The difference here is that amaranth doesn't deliver magnesium on its own. It comes with complete protein, including all essential amino acids, which is uncommon for a plant-based food. On top of that, it brings in manganese, phosphorus, and iron, so you're supporting bone structure, energy production, and oxygen transport at the same time. A 2020 clinical trial in nutrition research tracked adults over 50 and found that daily amaranth intake lowered LDL cholesterol by about 15% and reduced inflammation markers by 22% within 10 weeks. How it's prepared still shapes the outcome. 1 cup of amaranth with about 2.5 cups of water or low sodium broth works well. Bring it to a boil, then drop the heat and let it simmer covered for roughly 20 minutes until the liquid is absorbed and the texture turns slightly sticky, almost like a soft porridge. Letting it soak overnight before cooking helps reduce phytic acid and improves how much magnesium your body can actually absorb. From there, it's flexible. It can be stirred into soups to thicken them naturally, mixed into oatmeal to raise both protein and magnesium, or even heated in a dry pan until it pops like tiny popcorn. That popped version, known as alegria in traditional Mexican cooking, turns something functional into something you can actually enjoy eating regularly. Buckwheat changes the picture in a different way. Even though the name sounds like wheat, it isn't related to wheat at all. It's completely gluten-free and actually closer to plants like rhubarb and sorrel. A cooked cup gives you around 86 milligrams of magnesium, but the real difference isn't just the amount. It's a compound called D-chiroinositol that comes along with it. That compound works alongside magnesium in a way that strengthens the calming, muscle relaxing, and sleep supporting effects people usually expect from magnesium glycinate. And when they're combined naturally in the same food, the response tends to be more noticeable. A 2022 study in phytotherapy research followed adults over 60 who were dealing with ongoing sleep difficulties. After just 4 weeks of eating buckwheat daily, their sleep quality scores improved by 34%. The change stood out clearly when compared to both a placebo group and a group using a standard magnesium supplement. The mechanism lines up with that result. D-chiroinositol increases the sensitivity of GABA receptors in the brain, and GABA is the signal that quiets down nervous system activity and helps the body shift into deeper sleep. Magnesium supports that pathway on its own, but when it's paired with D-chiroinositol, the effect becomes stronger. There's also a concentration factor. A 2021 analysis in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that buckwheat holds the highest levels of D-chiroinositol among commonly available grains, around 3.2 milligrams per gram of dry weight. Beyond sleep, it brings in rutin, a flavonoid that supports blood vessel strength and circulation. That becomes relevant when you start noticing things like colder hands and feet, visible veins, or slower healing. In a 2020 vascular study, older adults who ate buckwheat daily improved peripheral blood flow by 19% over a 1-2 week period. Preparation still matters. Toasting the raw groats in a dry pan for about 4 minutes until they become lightly golden brings out a deeper flavor. After that, cook them with 1 cup of groats to 2 cups of water. Bring it to a boil, lower the heat, and let it simmer covered for around 15 minutes. It can also show up in different forms. Buckwheat flour works well for pancakes or thin crepes, similar to traditional Russian blini. Soba noodles, made from 100% buckwheat, are another option, but labels matter because many versions mix in regular wheat flour, which cuts down the effect. Timing changes the experience too. Having it in the evening as a warm bowl with sautéed vegetables and a soft-boiled egg lines that magnesium and D-chiroinositol combination up with the hours when your body is moving into recovery and deeper sleep. Oats sit in a completely different position than most people expect. The magnesium content on paper isn't the highest, about 63 milligrams in a cooked cup. But what changes everything is how that magnesium is delivered once it's in your system. A 2023 clinical trial in the British Journal of Nutrition followed 120 adults between 60 and 80 who ate a specific form of whole oat groats every day. Within 6 weeks, muscle cramps dropped by 74%. The group using magnesium glycinate saw a smaller reduction over the same period, around 38% in that study. That gap comes down to how oats are structured. They don't release magnesium all at once. The combination of magnesium, beta glucan fiber, avenanthramides, and silicon creates a kind of sustained release system, keeping levels stable in the bloodstream for up to 8 hours after a single meal. That's the difference you feel. Supplements tend to push levels up quickly and then let them fall off. Oats keep a steady supply moving, which gives your muscles, your nerves, and even your heart something consistent to work with. Beta glucan is a big part of that. It's usually talked about for cholesterol, but there's another layer. A 2021 study in gut microbes showed that beta glucan increased populations of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium by 46% over 8 weeks. Those bacteria directly improve how magnesium is absorbed in the large intestine, so the effect extends beyond just the oats themselves. Then there are avenanthramides, compounds you only find in oats and nowhere else in the food supply. A 2022 study in Free Radical Biology and Medicine found they reduced inflammatory markers by 26% in older adults, which ties into how joints feel and how muscles recover. Oats also carry more silicon than other common grains, and that connects to collagen formation and bone mineralization. So instead of focusing on one system, they end up supporting both muscle and skeletal structure at the same time. There's long term data behind that as well. A 2020 study tracking more than 9,000 adults over 5 years found that people who ate oats daily experienced 31% fewer bone fractures compared to those who didn't. It's not about having the highest number on a label. It's about how long that number stays active inside the body, and that's where oats change the way magnesium actually works. How you prepare oats ends up making a bigger difference than most people expect. Not all forms behave the same once they're in your system. Steel cut oats or whole oat groats hold on to more of the bran layer, and that's where much of the magnesium and those unique compounds are concentrated. The more processed versions lose a portion of that. The approach that changes things most is letting them sit overnight. Soaking steel cut oats in water or milk in the refrigerator gives them time to break down in a way that's already working with your digestion before you even eat them. That process reduces phytic acid and starts a natural fermentation. And research published in the Journal of Food Science shows mineral availability can increase by as much as 50% through that step alone. By morning, they're ready as they are, or you can warm them slightly if that feels better. Adding a tablespoon of ground flaxseed and a small handful of pumpkin seeds brings in more magnesium and rounds out the combination into what nutrition researchers would describe as a magnesium optimized meal. The pattern matters more than any single serving. In the clinical studies where oats showed the strongest effects, people weren't eating them occasionally. They were eating them daily, and it usually took around 4 to 6 weeks before the full shift became noticeable. That steady exposure is what allows the system to stabilize instead of reacting in short bursts. Taken together, these 5 grains deliver magnesium in a way isolated supplements just can't match. The difference isn't only in how much they contain, but in how that magnesium moves through your body, from the slower, steadier absorption you get with millet to the extended release you see with oats. The system is already built into the food itself. And none of this is hidden or hard to find. These are things that have been sitting on regular grocery store shelves the whole time, just not getting much attention. There's no need to suddenly drop supplements overnight. But when you start bringing these grains into your daily meals, something shifts in how your body responds. And that change shows up gradually over the following weeks. Over time, some people begin to notice it in how their muscles feel, how their sleep settles, how their energy holds through the day, and in the overall way the body keeps up. If this is the kind of biology you want to stay on top of, subscribe now so you don't miss what comes next, especially as we keep breaking down how nutrition and aging actually work together over time.